Max, do you think that Brady is under the most pressure this weekend?
I do. I think he's under the most pressure. It sounds ridiculous, right? 6-time Super Bowl champion, the greatest of all time, the GOAT under the most pressure. Yeah, man. In this weekend, not talking about the entire playoffs, this weekend, you're playing a sub-500 team. You're playing a sub-500 team whose quarterback was done a long time ago and then came back and then was hurt again, and they had to get rid of the other guy who they thought was going to be their quarterback, and they're just starting to figure things out. You have to beat that team, particularly when you went to a place with an embarrassment of riches on offense. You brought your security blanket in Gronk. They had a really good defense, and by the way, I give Brady credit. I'm not saying, oh, Brady just set himself up for success. He did, but you got to give him credit, and I do. He played exceptionally well, particularly as the season went on. This is a Bucs team that is peaking at just the right time. And do I think that has something to do with Tom Brady and his wisdom that comes with that experience and his own greatness and leadership? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. But for all those reasons, what possible excuse could he have for losing to Washington in the first round? For losing, you said it yourself, the weak link in the NFC playoffs. Let's be honest, in the playoffs, period, in the NFL, they are a sub-500 team. You have to beat them. By the way, you know who was Tom Brady before Tom Brady was Tom Brady? Joe Montana. He was the original GOAT. Just like Tom Brady's numbers, Peyton Manning's usually look better, but when the money was on the line, you liked Tom Brady, and how much of that was Belichick and how much of that was him? Montana went through the same thing with Dan Marino. Montana was one with all the championships, but he didn't have as much obvious talent as a guy like Marino, but he had Joe Walsh, and he had this system and everything. Then he went to KC at the end of his career because they had Steve Young. The 49ers had Steve Young. And he goes to KC, and what happens? He quarterbacks them to the AFC Championship.
Championship.
Right? That's the kind of stuff we're expecting from Tom Brady.
Yep.
We're expecting him to guide the Bucs on a playoff run.
It sounds good.
This is a double-digit win team.
Sounds good, Max. And I think you're thinking of this for the first time very, too small, right? You're like, oh, because he's playing a team that he should beat and all that. Yeah, whatever. You're thinking about, so you can come in and talk about this ravine or this cliff or this ditch or a canal or whatever it will be that Tom falls in.
It happens to be tilting up, but I didn't know.
Yeah, but here's the thing. What about Lamar Jackson, though, Max? What about the guy that's never won a playoff game? That in the last 2 years, even when he's the league MVP, loses to the Tennessee Titans, who, by the way, I think they're playing again, who he lost to this season in an overtime run by Derrick Henry. The Lamar Jackson that no matter what happened throughout this regular season, if he played well and was the season's regular season MVP, or if he played like he did kind of in the middle and now had to pick it up toward the end of the season, we were going to be questioning, does Lamar have what it takes to win in the playoffs? Can Lamar Jackson, with what we perceive as his limitations as a passer, being the lead runner on a team, win a playoff game? Can you get to a Super Bowl that way? That's the question we were asking of Lamar Jackson before the season started. And then now, the Lamar Jackson who didn't win the AFC North, who is just one of the 3 teams that gets in, 2 teams that got in by wild card, who isn't a Pro Bowler, right? Who isn't in the MVP conversation. Now he has to go to Tennessee, and now that his heights of individual play are no longer there, there's only one question. Are you good enough to win playoff games? And Tom Brady, if Tom Brady loses this will be a blip on the radar of Tom Brady. When we talk about his resume, when they give him his Hall of Fame jackets and we talk about his accolades, they won't even mention if he loses this game to the Washington football team. If Lamar Jackson loses this game to the Tennessee Titans, even if he plays well, everything about this will point to Lamar not being able to do it. Will point to Lamar's skill set not being enough for this team to win in crunch time in January. Because that's all we've cared about all season. Tom Brady, yes. When Tom Brady goes to Tampa and he has this embarrassment of riches, we think to ourselves, okay, they have an opportunity to win the Super Bowl because that's what the GOAT does. He got 6 of them. He's been to 9 of them. But with Lamar Jackson, it's a question of going forward in the future, you could see him doing this. He has to win this game. And I know it's on the road. I know the Tennessee Titans are the AFC South champions. But if Lamar Jackson doesn't win this game, we are going to talk about it for 365 days until he gets another chance, if he gets another chance. This is all about Lamar, the pressure on him to prove to people it works.
Look, Ryan, I'm not arguing there's not pressure on Lamar Jackson. I'm the original. It's not that he can't beat good teams. He's beaten plenty of good teams. He can't beat the teams he needs to beat, right? He can't beat the Pittsburgh Steelers with Roethlisberger. He can't beat the Chiefs, and he can't win in the playoffs. There's enormous pressure on Lamar Jackson, no question. But you said it yourself. He's playing the champions of a division. He's playing a very good team. He's playing a team that a lot of people think are going to win the game, right? No one thinks Washington's going to beat the Bucs.
Max, we won't talk about Lamar when we come in here. If Lamar loses to Tennessee, we won't talk about it. If Lamar loses to Tennessee, will that not be one of the lead stories of First Take?
Yes, not as much as if Tom Brady loses to Washington, though. Look, Lamar Jackson losing to Tennessee would be understandable, but it would hurt him. You're right. Even if he has a great game, people will still bring it up. I'll still bring it up because the details get fuzzy, and sometimes there's not enough time to really get into the details, and so it just gets swept into the pile of another big game he couldn't win. You're right. I'm not arguing against that. That is true, but presumably Lamar Jackson has years ahead of him, right, in a very good organization to take more and more cracks. Tom Brady, do you realize, is turning 167 years old next year? Tom Brady presumably has much less road ahead of him, and he cannot lose to a 7-win team on a team that is as stacked as the Bucs. Can't happen. You know what we'll say? Yeah, it's true. Bill Belichick went 7-9 without Tom Brady. There were lots of reasons for that. COVID and all types of stuff, right? And they go and Tom Brady left him without the quarterback and all the whole thing. 7-9. Tom, that's different than losing in the playoffs to a 7-9 team when you have every single thing you can ask for. Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.